video, we're going to talk about finding the circumference of a circle. Now, a few things before we do that, a few things we need to make sure that we're aware of. Number one, what is the circumference? The circumference is the distance around a circle. For example, if I look at this circle, this blue dot is circling the circumference of the circle. Now, in other shapes, we refer to that distance around the shape as a perimeter. So, for example, if I wanted to know the perimeter of a triangle, I want to know the distance around it. All right. Now, a few things that we need to know about a circle. Number one, the diameter. And the diameter represents the distance from one side of the circle to the other side while passing through the absolute center of the circle. And the other term we need to be aware of is the radius. And the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to any edge. So, for example, this can represent the radius. Now, something that's really important to know is that the diameter is always double the radius, or we can look at it as saying the radius is always 1/2 of the diameter. So the formula. The formula is C equals pi d. Now, just to make sure we know the parts of this, the C stands for circumference, and this silly little equal sign basically represents an approximation. Because if you think about it, we can't multiply or divide pi by any number in theory, because pi goes on forever. So when we multiply or divide pi, we are only multiplying or dividing an approximation of pi. So therefore, we're not really going to get the exact answer because we can't multiply the diameter times all of pi, because again, pi is an irrational number that goes on forever and ever. All right, so for pi, as I mentioned here, we're just going to use an approximation. We're going to use 3.14. Now, the more digits we use after that decimal, the more accurate our answer gets. But for the most part in school, we use 3.14. When you get into higher levels in school, in high school and college, you might use more numbers. And then finally, the D stands for the diameter. Now, the important thing to ask with any formula is, why does the formula actually work? So if I take a circle, a small circle, or if I take a big circle, a green one, a red circle, a circle with the vertical lines, a circle with nothing inside of it, or a circle with a smiley face in it, the same thing will always happen. Always happen. Now, if we look at this circle, notice how I have a line going through the center of it, which represents the diameter. Now let's imagine that I took a pair of scissors and I cut this line right here, and I laid it out. It would look like this. All right. So this would represent the circumference. Again, the distance around is the circumference. And again, I'm assuming that I cut this right here. Let's say it was a piece of yarn, this whole circle, and I cut it right here and I spread it out. All right. Now, if I take that circumference and I divide it by the diameter, I'm dividing it by the diameter, I get this. I'll get 3. And this actually represents 14/100ths of the diameter. So I get 3.14. So to prove that, I'm going to go ahead and just take these sections and I'm going to line them up. And it should fit perfectly. And there you go. So the circumference divided by the diameter gives us 3.14. So my 3 is 1, 2, 3, and here's my 14/100ths. So let's think about this for a second. If the circumference divided by the diameter equals pi, then that means pi times diameter equals the circumference. Now, let's give you some proof on that. Let's just use some regular numbers. So if 100 divided by 2 equals 50, then using the same logic as above, then 2 times 50 must equal 100. And as you know, of course, it does. So there's proof that it works. That's how the formula actually works. Now, let's do some examples. Find the circumference of a circle with a diameter of 5 inches. Now, the first thing you always want to do is start with the formula. All right, and then I want to fill in what I know. So I'm looking for the circumference, so I don't know that. But what I do know is that pi equals 3.14 and the diameter equals 5. So I just rewrite the formula, filling in everything I know. And now once I've done that, it's just a matter of solving it. So when I do 3.14 times 5, I'm going to get the circumference is approximately equal to 15.70 inches. Let's look at another example. Find the circumference of a circle with a diameter of 9 inches. All right, same thing. I'm going to start with the formula, and then I'm going to fill in all the information that I know. I don't know the circumference, but I know what pi and d stand for in this case. So the circumference is approximately equal to 3.14 times 9. When I do that multiplication, I'm going to get the circumference is approximately equal to 28.26 inches, or 28 and 26 hundredths of an inch. All right, one more example. It's going to look a little bit different. But it says find the circumference of a circle with a radius of 6 inches. So notice in this case I gave you the radius, not the diameter. Now we have two options. The first option on the left here, we can convert the radius to diameter and then solve as we've been doing. So as we said in the beginning, the radius is always 1/2 the diameter, or the diameter is always double the radius. So if I know the radius is 6, well then I could just go ahead and know that the diameter is 12, and then just solve like I've been doing. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter, fill in what I know, and then solve. All right. The other option is to use an alternate formula, and the alternate formula is going to be this. Circumference is approximately equal to 2 pi r. Now if you think about it, this 2 and this r, basically I'm multiplying 2 times the radius. And as we've said a couple times already, 2 times the radius, or if I double the radius, it gives me the diameter. So essentially it's the same thing, just written differently. So again, I'm going to fill in what I know, and I know that circumference is equal to 2 times 3.14 times 6. Let's do the first part of the multiplication there. 2 times 3.14 gives us 6.28, and then I multiply that by 6, and of course I get the same answer either way. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Please leave some feedback, subscribe. Thank you again.